Speaking of unreconstructed losers, here is Ron DeSantis. He has now been criticized by members of his own party, including Brian Donalds, who is the only a black Republican in Florida's congressional delegation. And I think Tim Scott, just hours ago this morning, criticized DeSantis. Now, of course, Tim Scott and Ron DeSantis are both presidential candidates, or, I should say primary candidates for Republicans. So it's not so surprising that they would attack each other. But this is Tim Scott reminding his Republican voters that he's still black. And so that is a little bit more daring than we would normally see in the Republican Party. That it's not, and basically saying this idea that enslaved people got some type of personal benefit out of slavery is bonkers. Again, the idea, we were talking about this with Frederick Douglass on Wednesday, the idea that Frederick Douglass had the opportunity to learn his ABCs from his master's wife, and then who ultimately turned big time on that entire project, as opposed to Frederick Douglass would have been able to learn all sorts of things had he not been enslaved.
Right.
Is just a very twisted reading of this.
Stanley Nelson has a great documentary on HBCUs that starts with the history of specifically how the measures slave owners went to make sure that even surreptitiously slaves didn't learn how to read.
Thomas Jefferson wouldn't allow for his enslaved people to read because and to write, because they were afraid that they were going to forge their own they
would be empowered. Right. They would be empowered. Yeah.
The point is that regardless of what anybody learned during enslavement, you have to assume that they would not learn that if they were free people. It's absurd. It's absurd. And here is Ron DeSantis really boiling it down. And a reminder, I guess, and I didn't actually hear her comments. The vice president weighed in on this. I only know that she did because every conservative pundit and including Ron DeSantis always references that as opposed to the substance of whatever she said, because that's the way they do. But imagine a guy who wants to be president responding to a Republican congressman criticizing the curriculum in this way. It's bizarro.
We heard Byron Donalds, though, he was critical of that particular piece, this little dust-up between the campaign and Byron Donalds. Is that helpful, though?
So, the end of the day, you got to choose. Are you going to side with Kamala Harris and liberal media outlets? Or are you going to side with the state of Florida? And I think it's very clear that these guys did a good job on those standards. It wasn't anything that was politically motivated. These are serious scholars. You've seen Dr. Allen out on TV talking about the stories, talking about his own family history and everything like that. So don't side with Kamala on that. Stand up.
So this is the second time. We played a clip yesterday on Newsmax, them talking about Biden's dog biting people, but is it more like Kamala Harris, the attack dog? And it's like they're doing this on purpose, mispronouncing her name as some sort of racially tinged troll. And it's like one of the first times, I find it in me, like the impulse to defend Kamala Harris, because it's grimy.
But in addition to them, it really is just like, whose side are you on? And yeah, and that's actually like, I don't know, man. It's just really a question of how you're presenting history. It really boils down to, I think, like, what is left of Republican politics. But we'll talk more about that with Heather Parton when she's on.
Did you see, though, really quickly before we take the break, that only 25 people showed up to his campaign event in Iowa?
His candidacy, I mean, I think we had said this months and months ago, but
Before he even launched. Yeah.
And, you know, I do want to talk to, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I want to talk to Digby about it because I think it's very, as bad as his personality is, I think like there is a real relevance to the failure of his agenda catching on outside of like this sort of very cloistered area. I think it's, I think there's something to it, and we'll talk about that with Digby in a moment.